This is Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments with Shelby Joe Long, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Shelby Joe Long.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Genius Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Shelby Joe Long. I'm CEO of Business Dynamics and Senior Vice President of the Strategic Advisor Board. And today I have the opportunity to interview a genius that has created a business out of their passion, and so they can provide that service to the world. I'm very excited about this interview today. I met Leanne last week, and just hearing her story and hearing her new project that's launching, very excited to be able to get this out into the world and so other people can know more about it. It's such a fun project. So today we have the opportunity to hear from Leanne Linsky with Plauzzable. And Plauzzable is a live online entertainment platform to connect comedians to a live audience. I think it's such a fun thing to do. So, Leanne, welcome to the interview today. I'm excited that you're here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. I'm so happy to be here, and I love talking, especially after not talking to people for so long.
Right. We get kind of in our space, and we're on Zoom meetings so much, and we have all that happening, and it's interesting because with your business, which I'm going to let you introduce, but your business is all about interaction and being live and being in front of audiences. And you have such an amazing background. I can't wait to dig into it a little bit more. But why don't you tell the audience about your business?
Sure. So, Shelby, as you mentioned, it's called Plauzzable. Basically, you can give and get laughs, live stand-up comedy from anywhere. So, in the past, comedians, so I've been doing I've been doing comedy since, I don't know, over 20 years. And I've found from my own experience, and obviously with commiserating with other comedians, we've historically always been challenged to get stage time, especially when we're just starting out. And it's not as easy as people may think. You don't just call up, like someone like Lauren Michaels and say, "Hey, I'm here," even though people have suggested that.
Right.
Not necessarily how it works. And also, people now especially are in need of laughs more than ever. And with the pandemic, a lot of things had shut down. But even before then, people were constantly streaming comedy and things like that. In fact, comedy is the second most popular live stream genre, right behind breaking news. Go figure, right?
Huh.
Yeah. So what better way to solve some of these problems and lower the barrier to entry for up and coming comedians and even longtime comedians who haven't moved to one of the coast, to pursue it full time, but are really funny and really good. And this way they can do it from anywhere without having to sacrifice a family and a career and things of that nature. And then also I learned that comedy fans prefer to watch comedy with other people. So although we often find ourselves scrolling on Instagram or on our feeds looking for some pre-recorded videos, people tend to prefer to watch comedy and laugh with others.
Yeah.
So,
and responding to the need that was created by the pandemic shutdown and the ability that we have to be able to connect with people all over is. People are used to doing this. They're used to sitting in front of their TVs or their laptops or their devices and with their friends. So I think it's something that's just
right.
Such a fun idea.
And it's funny because I started hosting some online open mics before COVID. And at first people were like, "Why would you do that?" And then COVID happened and people were like, "Oh, that's why we would do that." And it kind of, even before COVID, it took off with a many of my regular comedians who were like, why aren't you charging us for this? Like, this is such a service. And it was a different and even in some ways more intimate format where we could talk with one another and engage in a different way than we do in a live setting. So building the platform that I'm building actually takes a lot of things that we've seen in various places, but brings them all together in one. So although we can never replace the magic of in-person events, because I mean, how could we? But right. we can create something magical, over the internet and a new way of connecting and interacting in these ways with one platform versus cobbling a whole bunch together. And that's what I'm doing here.
Oh, so cool. Having accessibility, having the ability to be and I think it's such a service for comedians too, to be able to be in front of a bigger audience and, to get that, because the feedback is different, but there's still the opportunity for feedback, which I think you'll talk more about. So.
Yeah. So feedback is crucial in comedy, right? Mm-hmm. And it can come back it can come around in many forms, like silence, crickets,
right?
People getting up and walking out, going to the bar, going to, to the bathroom, or just completely leaving a venue. But it also comes in the form of chuckles and smiles and laughs and, audible feedback in that sense. And then, of course, and unfortunately, in recent events, we've even seen it come out in violent acts, which we do not want at all. And I think, learning the art of receiving feedback is one thing. And comedians, we have to really be observant and to do that in order to evolve and grow as an artist and to be better. And at the same time, I think as an audience, it's a skill. Giving helpful feedback is something I think we could use more practice at, rather than reacting and acting out, but instead being able to verbalize and communicate what exactly we liked and what exactly we didn't like, even in general, like even when it's positive, like that was amazing. Great. A comedian goes, what was amazing about it? Which part did you like? I often have, especially with new comedians who say, but why was that funny? And they don't know, right. Was it my timing? I've done that joke 10 times, but this time it was funny. What did I do different? And so those things are really important on both sides, I think. And art is collaborative. It's not done in isolation. Even writing a book, we could sit and you're an expert in writing books, to sit and write a book and then not share any of it until the very end and come out and expect that people are going to love it. It's kind of hard to go back and edit an entire book, but we do it in pieces. And it's the same with comedy. We don't sit down and write an entire set. And I mean, if someone out there is doing that, I want to meet you. And like, if you're writing an entire set in one shot, that's impressive. But typically we write one joke at a time and we work it out. And so usually it's too long to begin with, and we wordplay it, we wordsmith it, we get feedback, we, tweak it and change it and edit. And it's an ongoing process. Okay. And that's what I'm excited about with this platform, is because right now, if we go see comedy in person, which we always I hope always will continue to do. But if we go to comedy in person, we're limited geographically. So we're only able to see who maybe the venue books, right? Or who lives locally in our area, or specific comedians who maybe choose to tour in our area. But that has limitations to it. And online, that kind of cracks it open to a global scale of like what we have access to. And what if I could go on and see shows that, from people in other countries around the world? And, with comedy, there's truth in comedy. So which I love, and so many different perspectives and observations of society and culture and relationships. And so much to learn. And so that kind of cracks that open and reduces those barriers. And then we can learn from one another. But on this platform, you're not just watching in a passive manner like we would on TV. We have various ways that you'll be able to engage. Like our first rollout with this beta, and the features that we're sharing, will be similar to like some of the features you have seen in a Zoom or a Google Meets or something like that, where you can do some emojis and do some chats. But planned future things, there's other ways that you'll be able to react and give feedback. But also, like right now, if you go to a venue, you can rate and review a venue and leave a venue feedback. But if that comedian was passing through town, are they going to ever go back and read the venue reviews? That's more about the food or the beverage or the ticket price or, who knows what, how clean their bathroom was. And then, but on our platform, you'll be able to rate and review comedians and share with them what you thought about their set, what really resonated with you, or what maybe took you, off guard, or maybe you're, you don't even know it yet, but you're a comedian in the process and you want to collaborate and build some jokes. You could leave that. So this kind of takes it to a different level of how we interact and how we communicate with one another so that we have a better understanding, and especially in a time. I could talk about this forever, so jump in anytime. But even, comedians now are like, well, is this acceptable anymore? Where do we draw the lines? And I think these are really good conversations to have. And why not open them up with our audience? Like, where do you draw the line? And why are you still watching if we crossed it? And how do we, I think, I love comedy because I feel it's, people who do it are typically, they're smart. And I love it when people play to the top of their intelligence, and audiences are very smart, and they're much smarter than sometimes they're given credit for. And, that's why, I don't know, I just could go on forever about this, but that's why I want to bring these two groups of people, comedy fans and comedians, together in a more collaborative space that just cracks it wide open for everybody to be involved.
Absolutely. I think that's you talk about audience and feedback and interaction, and all of those things are I teach communication. That's like the basic principles of that. And to entertain an audience also requires that you as a speaker have some knowledge about the audience, and that you need that feedback to understand what's resonating. And I think this is like all my communication theory type of thing. It's just so fun to be able to and your platform is just going to provide that accessibility. Right. So I think that's really amazing. I want to back up a little bit. I want you to tell us a little bit about your background and your history and how you got into comedy. You're clearly very passionate about it, but I want to hear a little bit about your narrative story about your experience in comedy. Can you tell us?
Yeah. So, to start way back, my parents are pretty funny. My brothers are pretty funny. Our family has a quick wit and a sense of humor, and I learned in my life that humor is such a great release of tension. It can de-escalate situations fairly quickly, and it can connect people. And, years ago, when I graduated college, I grew up in the Chicago area. So people in Chicago area are very familiar with Second City. And I remember going to see them and everything in high school at one point. And I was like, wow, they're really smart people. And they did political satire and like all this stuff. Very impressive. And then didn't think much about comedy other than interacting with my family and on that level. And then after college, I worked for a Fortune 500 for nearly 13 years. And during that time, I had held different roles, but I was always the person in charge of planning our quarterly meetings and events and presenting and hosting. And eventually it accumulated into where they said, we're going to design a position for you as manager of cultural development. And this is way back in the Wayback Machine for a lot of people were talking about company culture and things of that nature. But what people, we were nationwide company and we're one of the largest home builders. And I lived in Las Vegas. I went to school in Las Vegas. So I moved from Chicago to Las Vegas. What a difference. What a great place to be when you're 20s. And we just had so much fun, and the events instead of meetings became other things. And anyway, I ended up doing a lot of public speaking, and I've always, because of my family and the way my parents always encouraged me to practice speaking in front of other people, I was always comfortable. So at this particular job, I remember a visiting president came within the corporation, not a political president, came and sat in my office and he said, have you ever considered taking improv classes at the Second City or something like that? And I was like, no, why? And he's like, because I think maybe that's something you should look into. And then a week later, I opened, I think it was City Life magazine, a local publication, and it flipped right open to a Second City ad. I'm like, well, that's weird. I'd never paid any attention. There was a Second City training center in Las Vegas at the time. And that's when Jason Sudeikis was on the main stage, and Kay Cannon was on the main stage, and Joe Kelly, and people who went on obviously to do amazing things. Yeah. And so I went and I called, and they had some classes coming up, and I signed, and I was bit by the comedy bug. And I went and did all these improv classes as a hobby. So before I go down this rabbit hole, because again, I could talk about comedy all day.
All day.
Eventually my job ended. We know what happened in home building, right? And over that time that I had been taking these classes for years, I had traveled to New York and studied with Upright Citizens Brigade and, in an intensive, and I've gone and done these things, and I loved it. And so some of the people I had met in New York reached out to me and said, hey, what do you do? And I said, well, I just lost my job. And they said, oh, well, you said if you didn't have that job that you love so much, you would move to New York. And this person was graduating college and said, hey, once I graduate, I'm moving to New York and I found a place to sublet. Do you want a room with me and save money? And I was like, well, think about it. And he goes, you have 1 hour. And I said, an hour? And he's like, 1 hour, because it'll be gone. I said, okay. And I got up from my office because I was still working, and walked around the building a couple times and went back in. I said, okay, I'm in. And a month later, I packed up 2 suitcases and I went to New York City. Totally immersed myself. I ended up living there for almost 9 years. I took every class I possibly could in comedy. I auditioned, I was acting. I did my one-woman show. I did, that I took to Delaware and DC, back to New York. I ran an open mic for 7.5 years in New York City. Wow. I produced a weekly stand-up show. I think my last year in New York, and I did 42 shows that year with that. And then I ended up on the West Coast and, in the LA area, and people are like, oh, Leanne, did you move to LA for your comedy? And my answer is, well, I guess you could say that. I moved there for a man, and that turned out to be a joke. But I ended up meeting another awesome man in my life, and we've been together ever since. But from there, I found myself sitting in traffic for like days, right? Because it's LA. I'm like, I'm spending more time in traffic than I am on stage. This is insane. And that's when I thought, I miss my friends in New York. I miss, doing these things and having this camaraderie. And I took it online. And I think that was in August of 2019. And after a month or two, they're like, why are you charging us for this mic? We're getting all this feedback. We're doing all these things. And so I was like, wow, if I'm onto something, and if I could do that, how do I scale this? And I was trying to figure that out. I ended up going back to school and got my master's in innovation and entrepreneurship. From there, I went in an incubator, got accepted into the Long Beach Accelerator. And then I just became a part of the 8th cohort for WTIA, the Washington Technology Industry Association Accelerator. So we're starting that. We received a pre-seed round for Plauzzable with the Long Beach Accelerator, which that's where we're at. And we're getting ready to launch our beta version, because before I was using all existing technologies to run those mics and test out ideas and to do things. And so I'm really excited to kind of bring this forward, but that's how I got here.
So you have so many fun experiences along the way. And because you worked in a corporation and you were doing these culture pieces, and then you were inspired to do more comedy. When did the entrepreneurship bug kind of hit you? When did you had that influence before? Because I have had a similar experience myself. I'm in academia, and I was like, I want to see what else is next, what else I can do with my expertise. And so, I remember the day that happened. So I'm just curious about when the shift happened to entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So when I was working for the corporation, during that time, and I was doing these classes and everything, and while I was there, although I was doing all these events, I had done bookkeeping. I had worked in their accounting department for several years when I started. I had done market research. So this is part of an important part of the journey, right? So I had started out in accounting. I ended up going into market research for several years. From there, I went out into the field and did construction. I started out as like a coordinator doing all the construction scheduling. And then I became a back-end superintendent, taking the house from drywall to finish. And then from there, I did all of the service. I was a service manager. So I had a team of service reps, and we managed all of the homes in a quarter of the valley for warranty service, right? And then I went into this cultural development. But all those things were important because I learned so much about business, like so many different angles. It wasn't just like I was like in this one specialty area and that was it.
Right.
But when I started taking those classes, that's where I really got bit. And I could see where everything I had learned at this company was so valuable. And it was while I was in Vegas, I was like, I love doing stand-up. And I was in an ensemble, and we were constantly looking for places to perform. And I was like, why do I have to go knock on everybody's door and ask to perform there and put on a show and, and coordinate with the venue? Why don't I become the venue? So I actually put together a business plan and was scouting out venues on Fremont Street before Fremont actually expanded, where Zappos came in and bought a bunch of things and did. But there were all these abandoned buildings down there. And now they've built up quite a bit since. But this was before the market crash and everything. Things were booming. And I was negotiating a lease in a building that I was going to transform into a live entertainment venue. And I had worked closely with a contact at House of Blues, and I had worked closely with the Second City because I was at their training center, and coordinated and agreed with them, like House of Blues might send me 4 walls that were too small for their venue. And, like Nora Jones and people like that. And then Second City's cast could come and perform in my venue on their off nights under a different name, things like that. We were talking, and I was so excited, and I was ready to invest everything into this venue, and I couldn't get lease terms. And I met with the gentleman, and I had my realtor broker and all of this, and he refused to put in writing. He goes, "You have my word." I'm like, I can't throw, $500,000 into building improvements for you on your word that in 5 years you'll renew. So, and I had worked with the city of Las Vegas was fantastic and working with, but that's when I had the bug initially. And then from there, I realized that I had to walk away from that deal. I would have lost everything. And thank goodness I did. Looking back, it all worked out the way it was supposed to. But that's when I first had the bug. And then from there, I really learned, I think, more about being an entrepreneur by being an actor and a comedian. Sure. I was a business. I didn't think of it that way all the time.
Yourself. Yeah.
But I had to treat it that way. And I set a schedule. I took jobs. I didn't always, contrary to popular belief, not everybody makes a lot of money or any money. Sometimes it's very inconsistent. Sometimes actors and comedians are paid with, bartering situations, or I'll buy you dinner or I'll buy you a drink, or, just random things like that. It's very inconsistent. And even though I'd book paying commercials and stuff like that, comedians, we're just not, it's not like, hey, we're making a salary. It's
right.
It's a gig economy, and it's a little bit more challenging. And this is even before like YouTube and Facebook lives. Those things didn't exist at the time. I mean, YouTube, they existed, but they didn't have all the features that they have now for some people to break out from other places. So yeah, I really got bit in that, and I really learned how to run my acting as a business, and applied basically everything I had learned in corporate to my one person business of that. And then from there, it just grew. And I actually have a coaching business so when I came to the West Coast and I was spending time in traffic, I also started a podcast, and we did 100 episodes. And, but when after we did our first 3 episodes, we batched, recorded, and we walked out of those sessions, and I shook my head and I was like, I don't know what happened. Like, none of that was funny. Like, and I was like, I think I went home and I Googled coaching. Like, I need to figure out how to talk with people instead of at people. And I had spent so many years on the stage doing those things. I'm like, I need to know how to have really deep and meaningful conversations. And so I ended up going into coaching so that I could practice the art of that, which led to me running a coaching business.
Yeah, I had a similar experience going from being a lecturer and telling information and expecting them to remember it to how there's a total difference between that type of communication and between the engagement and making sure the understanding is happening and giving agency to your audience and all those kinds of things. Totally different. And that was a light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh, I'm a trained communicator, and I have to figure out how to communicate differently. So that's which speaks to a skill that you have from the areas that you've developed.
Yeah. Yeah. It
all
was
of that
life-changing.
It sounds like everything was kind of pushing you towards that entrepreneurship. And as a comedian, you sell yourself to the audience, you connect with the audience, and that's everything about sales and everything about asking for money. It's all persuasion. It's all kind of tied together. So
yes, absolutely. And it's so, here I worked for this large corporation for years. Before that, I had other jobs where I worked, I had worked for the phone company, through high school and my first couple of years of college for years. And that was talk about another big corporation, right? This is before cell phones. I know, hard to believe because I'm only 25, but
that's what I would have guessed.
And then after I moved to New York, I promised myself that I would not take a job that I loved more than comedy. Because if I had a backup plan, I would always be falling back on my backup plan. So it was a promise to myself not to do that. And so I did things like I'm like, maybe I should do the quintessential actor thing and wait some tables. I did that. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Very humbling experience. I think it's something that everybody should be required to do once in their life. I did that. But I took other jobs. I worked, for a couple of years at an investment bank, which wonderful people that I met there. And I started feeling comfortable and I quit because, after a while, I'm like, I'm too comfortable. I need to push myself farther in these other areas that I promised myself and not get so comfortable. And then, did my comedy and acting for a while. And then I went back and found another full-time, position as director of marketing for another company, a much small, not a corporation, but a small mom and pop run family-owned business. And that was a whole experience, so different from corporate world. So, and I also managed a theater for a while, which gave me a lot of background and name it, lifetime of fun job, different types of jobs thing. It's like, this is interesting. What can I learn from this? And each thing was so completely different from the next, which, I think the days of people having 30-year careers and a pension are gone. And
I think we're reaching that for sure. So,
yeah, I don't meet many people, young people today that have that in their pocket. And so I think that each job that I've held, there's such a value to it, and each lesson that comes with it, and each relationship with that business or the coworkers and everything brings something that I can now look back on as an entrepreneur and go, thank God for that experience.
You definitely have entrepreneurship in your blood, because you're like, I'm not going to do anything that I love more than comedy. And then when you get comfortable, you go somewhere else. So it's like dealing with the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, and that you have your passion and you want to keep that and you want to keep focusing your genius, but then there has to be some areas to support that too. So that you have true entrepreneurship in your, and it's truly a genius entrepreneur, right? You're focusing where you want to focus, what makes you happy. Now you're to the space where you're going to make this more accessible to people. And your project with Plauzzable, tell us about that, and tell us about the launch that's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, someone were to go and check out what we're doing now. We're using existing technologies like Zoom and things like that to connect and to use. But what we're launching this fall, around the 1st to mid-November, it's tentative because software development is that way, because there's so many things to be done. But we're going to be launching a freemium version so that we're going to onboard our comedians first and get them familiar and trained on how to use the dashboard and maybe do some practice shows with each other. And then after we give them a period of time to get settled in and to get some shows on the calendar, we will invite our comedy fans to come on in. So what's going to happen is that whether you're a comedy fan or a comedian, you'll go to our homepage, plauzzable.com, and you'll be able to log in. So you can log in with Facebook, Twitter, or Google, so that it makes it easy, and it will just hold your password from there and you can go right in. Or you can create your own, username and password. And then it's going to ask you to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. And the reason we ask this is first of all, I want to know who you are so we know what kind of comedy you're looking for, right? What types of comedy do you like? Do you like clean comedy? Do you like moderately clean comedy? Do you like club humor? Do you like, what we call blue humor, which is, very crass and vulgar? Some people like it. I don't know. But, we need to know that in order to make recommendations, or so that you know what to expect when you see a comedian. Because likewise, the comedian will say, I am these things. I am a clean comic. I am a vulgar comic. I am, or however you want to word it. But that way we can match you up. It's kind of like a dating site, right? And then tell us a little bit about what kind of comedy do you like? Do you like, wordplay with puns and, things like that? Do you like slapstick humor? Do you, that's more physical and silly? Do you like, relationship humor? Do you like political humor? Do you like religious humor? So, do you like deadpan? Do you like Stephen Wright? So we have all of these choices that you can select as many as you would like, and then tell us what you don't like, what you don't want to see. So we don't make those recommendations. So you can even upload a little photo of yourself, show us who you are. And, if you want to skip that step and get right to it, the next step will take you in, and then you can see our directory of comedians, and you can hover over them and see their bio and what they do and what they're about, and you can follow them. So following people here, you're not going to be seeing posts from them all day about like what they had for breakfast or how they walked their dog, or it's not that at all. You just follow them. So if you follow them, then you'll be alerted when they post a show. And it's like, oh, I like that person. They just posted a show. Let me see if it fits in my schedule. So you'll only be alerted for those kind of things. You don't have to, it's not another social media site that you have to like spend hours going down rabbit holes with. Right. Just when it comes to watching shows, right? And so we'll ask you those kind of things. And same thing, you know, when a comedian logs in, they'll be able to set up their profile. You can go to their page and see it. So, you know, that's the other thing I found. A lot of comedians are like, I don't have a website, but then all of a sudden they're like, I need a website. How do I get a website? So we've taken care of that for them. They have, this is their site. You can go and check them out. Like, and then not only that, as this populates and people start seeing shows and reviewing shows, you can see what other people said about their show, right? Yeah. It's kind of like a Yelp. So you can do that, but you don't have to download anything. It's all cloud-based. So you log in, and then when it's time to see a show, you click on it, you go live like this. We have a different setup for our screen and all of that, which we'll have a little demo and everything next month, so that people, when they say, hey, this sounds interesting, I want to check this out, then get on our wait list in October, and we'll be sure to alert you the moment that it launches in November, and we'll get you on there.
Oh, so cool. I can't wait. It's just an exciting platform. It's something that's so new. You're solving a problem for not only comedians, but then also audiences that want access. Like I'm in Montana, and so there's not a ton of live shows, but I know people have even left Montana to go to Chicago to be able to be around more of that. So I think there's such an opportunity for comedians to collaborate and an opportunity for audiences. I think it's going to be really amazing to see how those connections really start to thrive.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah. And it's coming up.
That's right. And it's live. So it's not like it's all pre-recorded and you just get a little clip here or there. It's live. You see them in action, working out material and you know, right there on the spot. And yeah, like you say, you're not limited anymore by your location.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. Well, where can our audience find out more about Plauzzable? I mean, you have the website and all that.
Yeah. So it'll be launched on plauzzable.com, and I will also drop a link to you for our waitlist page, and we'll put it in the description. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So I'll share that with you. And if anybody wants to do that, they can reach out. And if you want my email or contact information, I'll be happy to share that as well.
That'd be great. Yeah. We'll include all that in the description so people can have access to that, because this will be posted in a few different places. So that's great. Well, Leanne, I am so inspired by your project, and I look forward to learning more about it and learning more about everything that's going on as far as connecting the comedians and the audiences. And I look forward to being on the wait list and being on the comedy so I can access some of that. I think it's such an amazing idea. And it solves problems that people might not know that they need, but now it's something that provides more access and entertainment. And what more do we need in this world today, for sure?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's get together and share some laughs. That's what we need now.
That's what we need now, for sure. Get together and share some laughs. Well, Leanne, I look forward to speaking with you more, and I am excited to introduce this to the audience. I think it's such an amazing program. And is there any final thoughts before we sign off today?
Well, I just want everybody to know I'm really excited, and I hope to hear from you, as long as, I don't know if you heard that car go by, but I'm excited to see what happens next with everything on Plauzzable. Like I said, this is our beta. So this is just our free rollout of our freemium level. And then coming after that will be some extra special features that I have not yet mentioned.
You are excited to figure all of those things out. And I thank you for coming on and talking to us about how you have taken your genius and created a business out of it. It's so inspiring for other entrepreneurs out there that are thinking about, how am I going to get my next paycheck? But pushing forward and living your passion is something that can help us all through that. So I appreciate your story, appreciate hearing about your background, and I look forward to talking to you next time to another genius entrepreneur to help inspire you to take the next steps in your journey.
Thanks for listening to Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments with your host, Shelby Jo Long. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.